Please come in and join me for another installment of Dr. Webb's Wednesday workshop. Today's topic is self-care, particularly how self-care ain't always cute or fun or comfy and cozy. We'll jump into that topic soon, but first, introduce yourselves, say hello. As always, I love to get to know you all, where you're tuning in from, and what the weather's like where you are. Also, we'll be dropping some comments about what your favorite self-care practices are of the various sorts. I do have some submissions from the folks on Instagram. I almost said Twitter. Maybe I need to start going live on Twitter. But some folks on Instagram have been leaving comments about some of their favorite self-care practices. So I will definitely put those up on the screen for Instagram, but also read them out loud so all of us can take notes and get some new ideas for our favorite self-care practices. One thing, and I don't mean to already be talking about the topic, but sometimes we, get bored with our usual self-care routines and we're looking for something fresh, a way to shake things up a little bit. So we can get some new ideas for how to do that as well. But we're also going to talk about the more challenging forms of self-care, the kinds of self-care that don't make for cute social media posts, right? Hey, Tiffany, I finally caught a live. Yes, you did. And I think you're going to like this one. And I look forward to hearing some of your comments as well. Some announcements before we get started. Remember to say where you are located, because after this pandemic is over, I plan on doing a world tour. Well, my version of it. And coming to see some folks in person, especially people that I haven't already met in person. I've met a lot of people online over the summer, and it makes me want to travel to places like Germany and the UK and Switzerland and Australia and India, and then of course all the various places in the US. So remember that these are every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. If you can't stay for the whole time, they will be available for playback on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as in podcast form. Also, you can share this with someone that you think might appreciate it or enjoy it. That is a great way to support, is to like, share, subscribe, and follow. I do have an upcoming workshop on hair, right? So next week, we are finally talking about texturism and hairism and all the hair politics that go on, especially, hey, Lynette, what's going on? All the politics about hair. So that'll be next week, y'all. I'm excited about that one. Jandelle's calling in from Dallas, Texas. Yes, I was just in Dallas earlier this summer. Sienna, come to North Carolina. I'd love to meet you. I gotta go to North Carolina. I flew through Charlotte once, but I would love to actually go to North Carolina and visit. What's up, Mixed Bloom Room? Hi, how are you? Also, if I'm using your username and you prefer me to use your actual name or nickname or something like that, always feel free to correct me on names. I try to get them right as often as I can. Office hours appointments have been going really, really well, y'all. So if you want a one-on-one conversation with me about colorism or about a creative idea that you have, or some other, like maybe how to deal with microaggressions at work or something like that, I'm happy to do just a one-on-one conversation or consultation with you. Hey, Jendelle, I like the way you hop from Facebook and Instagram. Sarah, oh, we got another Sarah on the line. Did I know that? No, I feel like there was another Sarah that I met via Ethos Club. But hey, my namesake on Instagram. Hey, Dr. Norton Therapy. Dr. Norton Therapy is a great resource since we're talking about self-care. Make sure you follow all of the therapists of color on Instagram. And Dr. Norton Therapy makes really cool TikToks and Instagram reels. Lynette White Pierce on Facebook is saying, oh wow, hairism is a needed discussion. I know. And it's hard to believe that I haven't really dug into it yet. All the years I've been doing colorism, I haven't really gotten nitty gritty about the hair issue. So I'm excited about next week. Mixed Bloom Room says, I will DM you. I would love to do a consult with you. Yay, so exciting. Hey everybody coming from Orlando, our Mother's Archive. Hey, our Mother's Archive, Orlando, Florida in the house. I assume there's no other Orlando. Okay, last announcement because we got to get started on the topic at hand is that I have finally launched that Patreon page that I've been talking about for a few weeks. It's finally up. I have 3 tiers I'm really excited about. I will be posting content on Sundays there. So you can just check it out and see what it is, right? Like there's obviously no pressure to sign up, but if you're just curious, like what is Patreon? What is that all about? I am at patreon.com/colorism healing, of course, but there are all sorts of people who have Patreons, lots of musicians and artists and various nonprofits, Nina Turner, Issa Rae, right? Some of your favorite activists even have Patreon accounts. So definitely, if you are not familiar with Patreon, give it a check it out. All right, let's jump into it, y'all. I think I've waved at everybody on, Vincent. Hey, June, I'm glad I scrolled down to see your comment. Hey, y'all, I'm loving this shirt and this hair. Yes. So I've had my hair twisted for 3 days and I just untwisted it for this live because I wanted to look a little jazzy for y'all. And then, yeah, I'm experimenting with different kinds of, colorism healing attire and gear. So I feel like this is my uniform now. This feels like whenever I'm doing colorism assignments or working on projects, I can put on my uniform and make it official. Okay, so I'm going to start by looking at some of the audience responses about their favorite self-care practices. So I polled the folks in my stories. And you can always drop yours in the comments, right? So the overarching question for the day, for this session, is what is your favorite self-care practice, right? So I'll be looking at your responses throughout the live. But in the poll on Instagram, the first one came from Being a 10 TT. I hope I'm saying that name right. And so their favorite self-care practice was doing my nails and sleeping without an alarm, right? So I totally understand doing the nails part, although I tend to not really be into nails. But the sleeping without an alarm is major, so major. It just feels so good, okay? And then another one that we had, y'all know, one of my favorite practices, if you've been following me or just know me at all, you know that one of my favorite self-care practices is journaling. And so Rachel Ray, _Rachel Ray on Instagram, said journaling, period, was her favorite self-care practice. So a woman after my own heart. And then we also have Jody Wirt. So Jody Wirt, Jody.Wirt on Instagram. You'll see her in the comments a lot. She also has her own really good organization. Some of her favorite self-care practices are praying, running, communing with nature and animals, and dancing, okay? Now, y'all know I like all those things. I'm less like an animal person. I like to look at birds and butterflies. But I don't like too much physical, intimate contact with animals, but definitely being in nature, sitting outside, enjoying the sunshine, praying, meditating, running. I went running today. I love running. It feels so good. And then dancing, of course. Speaking of dancing, we have Walker Lived, who is also a regular here on Colorism Healing, says dancing, especially in the middle of a tough day. Dancing brings me back into my body. Okay, let me slow down a little bit for Walker Lived and what they're saying. One, it's really hard to feel bad while you're dancing. If you don't believe me, just try it. If you're in a bad mood, if you're frustrated, if you're angry at somebody, try dancing and see how long you can manage to stay in that bad mood while you're dancing. It's an experiment. I haven't tested this, but my theory, my hypothesis is that it's going to be really hard to stay in that bad mood if you try dancing. But I also love that Walker Lived said, dancing brings me back into my body, right? And so I replied in the DM that, it is definitely a celebration of yourself, right? That's one thing that dancing can help us tap into, right? I love my body. I appreciate my body. I am centered and present in my body and also in this moment, right? So I love dancing as a form of self-care. Welcome, y'all. Come on in. Come on in. Join us, folks. Join us. Then we have JB1710 saying that her favorite self-care practice is checking in with my children with family meetings. So that sounds like a really good self-care practice, right? Checking in with folks for family meetings, like having designated time for family meetings, right? And JB1710 also happens to be my mom, so I'm one of the children that she checks in with every month. So those are definitely very pivotal and critical in terms of, being, especially when you live far apart from your immediate family or from family in general, like having that designated time to check in is really a good element of self-care. And then we have one more from the audience, wavy.world, also a frequent person that I see on the gram. Long baths and R&B music mixed with a social break from people and social media. Now, can we get an amen on that? Can we get an amen on that? Because y'all know, first of all, long baths, love it. Throw some, scented oils or something, light some candles, do your thing. And the R&B music feels like home to me. Like my home is R&B music. But then that social break from whatever, social break from work, from people, from social media, from TV, from, sunlight, whatever you need a break from, definitely take those breaks. So Wavy World, and to everyone whose comments I've read so far, excellent suggestions. Okay, so am I missing anything on any comments? Okay, good. So on Facebook, we have Jendelle Crutchfield, nothing like music as self-care for me, right? And there's nothing like putting that one song on repeat all day. Just that one song, that's your vibe for the day. And you just let it play on repeat. And you can have your headphones on so other people don't complain that you're listening to the same song over and over again. Also, Jendelle has a really cool Facebook post where she's dancing to, is it the Gap Band in her office at UTA? Lynette White Pierce on Facebook is saying, soaking up a lot of great music back to back. Okay, so I see we got some music heads and some dancers in the group, right? People who love music, people who love dancing. That might be why y'all, like my page, because subconsciously you knew we were kindred spirits, right? And we just love to dance and sing. I said I was gonna do some karaoke for y'all one day. Maybe this is the day that I do a little live karaoke. Janelle says, yap, the Gap Bands, okay? So I'm going to add on to some of the things I just read, and I kind of want to offer a small framework that I've been thinking about in terms of self-care. And so I think a lot of times we focus on self-care in ways that focus on the fun and the comfy, cozy feel, or the things that feel good in the moment, right? But there's also aspects of self-care that are necessary for our survival, that are necessary for us to thrive, and that are necessary for our growth and our healing, right? Last week we talked about what is healing. And I said that some of the things we talked about this week were going to be helpful for that. Just in terms of, explicit practices, explicit habits and actions we can take to promote our healing, to promote our own self-healing. And so those two things are not mutually exclusive, right? You can have something that's really fun and comfortable and exciting and cute and fresh that also helps your healing and that also helps you to grow and heal your wounds. But we can't assume that self-care is only always pleasant, right? So self-care can sometimes be uncomfortable. And so I don't want you to think, or anyone, I think the people on here kind of get it already, but anyone, we don't want to assume that if we are feeling uncomfortable or having to put in some effort that it's not self-care, right? The benefits, though, of doing things like getting your nails done, right? So going back to, I don't remember the screen name. Yeah, going back to doing things like getting your nails done or getting your hair done at a beauty salon, or taking a nice long bath with some essential oils, or just sitting outside in the sun, or treating yourself to some ice cream. I don't know if y'all saw my Instagram story when I was on my way to get some ice cream. That was really fun. But those kinds of self-care moments are just as important because they give us rest and rejuvenation, and we know that we cannot be our best selves if we're exhausted and overwhelmed and burdened and living in chronic stress, right? So all these things that we do to take our mind off of the day's work, or the days filled with microaggressions at work, y'all know, those things give us rest and rejuvenation from that, right? But they're also mood boosters. So thinking about Walker lived, where's that? Dancing in the middle of a hard day, right? Puts you back in tune with your body, but it also literally boosts your mood. I used to, when I lived in Baton Rouge, I used to like to go rock climbing at the various rock climbing gyms. There's not a really great rock climbing gym where I am now, unfortunately, but I do have, a nice place to run. But these things can actually help us boost our mood. And there's biological, chemical, aspects to that, right? So it's not just, oh, if I do this, it'll make me feel better, but literally your body chemistry changes. There's, dopamine, endorphins that get released when you're doing some of these activities like singing or laughing or running or dancing. And then the third thing that I think is important about these self-care practices is that they boost your confidence. And obviously this is important for me as someone who talks about colorism and colorism healing. A lot of, women and men, feel insecure about their bodies, and they feel insecure about the way they look, right? And so treating your body kindly, being nice to your body, showing compassion for your body, right? Enjoying your body, celebrating your body. And again, that could be getting your nails done, that could be getting a massage, that could be taking a long bath, that could be sleeping without the alarm, right? All these things that give your body attention and affection in various ways. It could even be, splurging on a really nice brand of lotion and taking your time every day to put that lotion on your skin, right? Taking the time to do those small things, right? Or eating your favorite fruit, right? These things send messages, subconscious messages, but also conscious messages to you and to your body itself that it is worthy, that it is valuable, that it is worth that time, that it is worth that attention and that affection, right? And so I think in terms of healing from colorism and other types of body issues, whether it be skin problems or, issues around weight or hair texture, right? Showing love and expressing love and physical touch and allowing your body to enjoy various sensations and to be celebrated and loved on, I think is a big confidence booster. It sends the message that I am worth putting on a really nice fabric today. I'm gonna wear my silk shirt today. I'm gonna put on my really fluffy slippers. Fluffy scissors, that's an interesting question. Interesting paradox. Putting on your fluffy slippers, or, doing a deep conditioning, taking the time to do deep conditioning in your hair. All those are important. But I do want to talk about the difference between self-care and escapism. So one of my, I don't want to say a concern, but because I think people are okay either way, but in terms of growth and healing, right? Not every form of self-care is actually going to get us to that point, right? And I'm thinking about forms of escapism where the goal is to avoid, to numb, avoid the problems, avoid the issues, and to numb ourselves to our experiences, right? Rather than opening ourselves up to life, right? There are types of escapism that might be labeled as self-care that are really not actually caring. They're not acts of care at all, right? But they allow us to feel like we're getting to run away, feeling like we can escape our problems, right? And so I don't think that that's the same goal as self-care, right? Not everything, the saying, y'all know the saying, everything that's good to you is not always good for you, right? So that's something to keep in mind as you are, going into your own self-care practices and trying out new forms of self-care and that sort of thing. Welcome. I see a lot of people coming in and out and just joining, right? So if you're just joining, make sure you say hello and where you're tuning in from. The topic today is self-care and how it ain't always cute, but it's necessary. And my question for anyone watching is to let us know what some of your favorite self-care practices are. And I just kind of gave an overview of the fact that there is a difference between escapism and actual care for the self. Now, I want to kind of talk about the forms of self-care that are not as fun, right? I called it earlier in the live stream, I said that they're not maybe social media worthy, right? They're not anything that's going to look cute or cool on social media, but they are crucial and critical to our self-care. All right, so we have Chris Oliver. Hello, Lemoore, California. Welcome from Cali. I have never heard of Lemoore. Is it Northern California or Southern California or Central California? Vincent says me. Me. Finish that. Comment on Instagram from Rose Mike. My connection is too bad to follow this, but I really appreciate this platform and you look amazing. Thank you. If your connection is not working now, then I hope you can catch the playback. Lagoda Derosio. I butcher screen names all the time, y'all. I apologize. Greetings from the Boogie Down Bronx. Hey, I can kind of see your profile picture and you totally look like, you're from the Boogie Down Bronx. I don't know what that is though. Bianca Erma. Hi, I'm from Florida, sunny Florida. We did have someone pop in from Orlando too. So y'all are, Floridians representing big time. So Lemoore, California is in central, halfway between Fresno and Bakersfield. Okay, that's really cool. I've driven through California. I lived in the Bay Area for a couple of years, but didn't get much further south than San Jose. But, there's still time to do that. Lagoda's laughing. Hey, Laura, welcome. Rocio. Thank you. Gotcha. Rocio, I like that. All right. So other important forms of self-care that are not as fun or interesting or social media worthy, right, as getting our hair done or taking long baths, are nutrition and physical health. Now that I'm saying that, I realize a lot of people do actually post on social media about their nutrition and physical health. But what I mean by that is not always something we want to do, right? So we want to sleep in late without the alarm. We want to take long baths. We want to get our hair done. We want to, treat ourselves to a new dress or, put on our cozy slippers and listen to music all day, right? Those are the forms of self-care that we want to do. And so that's great. Then the forms of self-care that are necessary, but that oftentimes feel like a chore that we don't really want to do as often. I think one of those basic ones is nutrition and physical health, right? I struggle more so with the nutrition piece, right? Because I actually enjoy exercise. I like to sweat. I like to get my heart rate up. I love to run, but I don't necessarily like to, I should say I love to binge on ice cream and cheesecake and donuts and pizza and whatever. I love eating all that. I love fast food, right? But I was leaving a comment on Buddha Noonie. Buddha Noonie makes some body butter right there. I went to high school with Buddha Noonie, the creator of that, and they were posting about how what we eat shows on our skin. And I was saying my skin issues, I have seborrheic dermatitis, and I'm trying to find holistic ways to deal with that and treat that. So I'm like, okay, that's going to motivate me to stop eating so much peanut butter. As much as I love peanut butter and Reese's, my skin does not love peanut butter. I've noticed a pattern where if I'm eating a lot of peanut butter, then I have a lot of inflammation on my skin. So that's one of those necessary aspects of self-care that is very difficult. That is something that we aren't going to just naturally enjoy doing. Mixed Bloom Room, I love donuts, right? Like I will eat a half a dozen donuts like at once, especially just warm glazed donuts. With the pandemic, it's kind of helped me not to go out as much, so that helps. But if somebody's offering donuts, okay. Vincent on Facebook is saying LMAO. I was trying me reading, meditating while listening to music, sitting outside on the porch. Hallelujah for the porch with a glass of wine and sketching. So Vincent, aka June, you have a whole vibe. You have like a whole afternoon worth of self-care. I love the reading and meditating, listening to music, sitting outside on the porch. I love the porch. Y'all know I just bought a house in June and it has a porch and it has a deck in the back and I just love it. I will face the mosquitoes to enjoy my porch. I love porches. I just love porches. I love paintings of porches. I love pictures of porches. June says, true, I'm trying to exercise more, but my goodness. Yes, okay. A second thing that's important for self-care, that's not always easy or comfortable to do, y'all, is setting boundaries. Yes, I was trying to keep it light and airy, and not get too deep, since we did a lot of, more difficult topics last week when we talked about what is healing. So I'll just quickly note that setting boundaries is often very difficult and very uncomfortable for us to do. But it's necessary, and not just to have boundaries for ourselves, but we have to practice communicating our boundaries. And that's really where the discomfort comes in, right? Is not having or knowing that we have or need a boundary. The really uncomfortable, difficult part comes in communicating that boundary to someone else and maintaining it. Communicating that boundary to someone else and maintaining it, okay? Lynette White Pierce says, love porches too. Yes. Thank you to whoever invented porches. And that brings me to a third point, and that's that having those honest conversations, having what people often call difficult conversations, right? Where we might be communicating those boundaries to people. That is so crucial for self-care, y'all. If you don't want your neighbors dropping by your house at 10 o'clock at night, we can't just be mad that they drop by at 10 o'clock at night if we haven't first told them not to do that. So if we've communicated clearly, like, don't come to my house at 10 o'clock at night, and they still do it, okay, then we could be, upset that they're crossing that boundary. But we have to actually tell people what our expectations are, what we need, what's helpful for us, you know what I mean? The kinds of things we're comfortable with and what we're not comfortable with. Chris Oliver says, ouch, communicating my boundaries, right? Yeah, and so we have to be aware what those are, and a good sign that you need a boundary is if you get angry. That is a clear sign that you need to communicate a boundary, right? If someone is doing something that makes you angry or triggers you or makes you like step back or, pull back in some way, or if you're complaining about it, you're like, okay, I'm getting frustrated. So that must mean I have a boundary, or I need to place a boundary there, and I need to let that other person know that there's a boundary. Boundaries with ourselves, right? So I'm not going to check emails after 7 o'clock at night. Or for some of you, you don't check emails after 4 p.m., right? You don't check work emails after 4 p.m., right? So you can even set boundaries not just with other people, but with your time, putting a schedule for yourself on Saturdays. I'm not going to answer work calls, right? Or I'm not going to take appointments before 8 o'clock a.m., or I'm not going to take appointments after 5 o'clock p.m., right? So there are different kinds of boundaries, and having them in place and having the courage to maintain them and enforce them will be light years for you in terms of your self-care benefits. Yes, definitely, says Chris. Introspection and journaling. So my fourth thing in terms of that is introspection and journaling. So this can happen while you're listening to music. The good thing about introspection and journaling, like Vincent June on Facebook said, is that, you know, when you're in the bathtub, taking that long bath with your essential oils and candles, you could be doing introspection at that time or not, right? Because sometimes you just want to be at ease. But you could spend some of that time or a portion of that time or the time right before you get into the bath, right? To do some of that introspection and that reflection on your growth, right? The next thing I'll say that's helpful is setting intentions and goals for yourself, having sort of a vision. And I'm thinking about that too in terms of all the people who are trying to learn how to be good allies, for example. I'll use that as my example for here. So if we are wanting to be good allies to whatever other marginalized groups we, you know, have compassion for and care about and love, then we can focus on some learning outcomes or some behaviors or attitudes or words that we need to change, right? In terms of, you know, setting that as a focus, a long-term focus for ourselves, right? And that's, again, not the fun, you know, laid back, kind of cute and comfy, cozy kinds of self-care, but it's self-care in terms of being our, I think, I don't want to say best self, but being our most authentic selves, being who we want to be, right? When we think of who we want to be, who would I want to see myself as someone who's compassionate. So that means I need to be aware of whether or not I'm doing acts of compassion, right? Because I don't want to, you know, 5 years from now, look back and feel guilty about the way I lived my life, right? And so it's sort of like a preemptive self-care. It's like proactive self-care. So in order for me to, you know, look back on how I've lived my life over the years and be satisfied and proud of how I've lived my life, that means I have to do things in the present in order to be able to do that in 10 or 20 or, you know, 50 years, right? And that means I have to consciously be thinking about, okay, when I am, you know, looking back and reflecting, what will I want, how will I have shown up for other people? How will I have shown up for myself, right? And so that requires setting intentions in the present. Tiffany Saunders on Facebook says, I'm so much better at setting boundaries with my time than with people. Honey, yes. Because time can't talk back. Time can't get mad and say, I'll never speak to you again. So let me repeat that. Tiffany Saunders is saying, I'm so much better at setting boundaries with my time than with other people. And that's because other people have autonomy and sovereignty to respond back and to get mad about the boundaries we're trying to enforce. So I definitely empathize with you on that one. Trinity Miracle, I like that username. Yes, I've been stepping away from the alarm when I can and just letting the sun wake me up. That is a beautiful practice, right? It's directly related to how our body naturally wants to operate, what they call the circadian rhythm. So the fact that you can do that is really awesome. The last thing I'll say before I turn it over to however else you want to spend your afternoon is celebrating your growth, right? So what I was just talking about is having goals for yourself, right? And who you want to be and how you want to be able to look back on your life and say, yes, I have shown up in the world in a way that I am proud to have shown up. But then you get to celebrate that growth. You get to celebrate when you have, you know, learned to use people's pronouns correctly, right? You can celebrate when, excuse me, my laptop is dying. The battery is low, so I have to plug it in. You can celebrate yourself when you do set a boundary, right? When you successfully set a boundary with your time or with other people, let that be an opportunity for you to do one of your more fun and lighthearted forms of self-care, right? Let that be the time when you can eat a donut, or you can take a long bath, or you can sleep in late, right? Coast Live Woke says boundaries can be difficult in relationships where there were none before. That's true. But that's, I think boundaries can be difficult in relationships, even if they existed before, but they need to change or new boundaries come up, right? And I think for the relationships that are meant to last, or the relationships that are that have hope for being healthier, they're actually going to get better, right? So I think relationships that end when you communicate a boundary, I think that might be a blessing in disguise. And I think the relationships with people who are also trying to be their best selves, those relationships can actually get stronger once boundaries are in place, right? And both parties then can thrive individually and also have easier communication, and there's less tension and there's less resentment, right? So I think they can be difficult to communicate in relationships where there were none. But if the relationship has any kind of integrity or any seed or nugget of integrity at all, ultimately, once you overcome the hurdle or the initial, inertia of setting boundaries, then you'll find that both people and the relationship itself actually starts to thrive more once those boundaries are in place. But yeah, it is. And that's, the part of it, what I'm saying is like a lot of these self-care practices are not fun. They're not the self-care practices that we like to talk about, but even more than, dancing, as much as I like dancing, more important than dancing for me is having boundaries, having clear boundaries and communicating them. So as much as we like the other forms of self-care, some of the more difficult ones that are not as fun and lighthearted to talk about are actually going to do the most work for us in terms of protecting our peace and protecting our, well-being. Coach Liv Volk, I appreciate your insight always. I'm definitely learning that now. Yeah. And also, I think setting a boundary, we can allow for time to adjust to it, right? So it's not like, somebody's reacting this way the first day that I set a boundary doesn't mean that we have to write them off or cut them off, right? Like we can give ourselves time to adjust to boundaries, and we can give other people that time to readjust to boundaries, but definitely keep reinforcing them, keep reminding them, keep communicating them. And I think ultimately, for the relationships that actually have some integrity to them, things will get better. As always, I have to end with some homework. And of course, an affirmation. I'm really excited about this affirmation because it's an affirmation I wrote for myself. And so I'm sharing with y'all one of my own intentions, one of my own goals, right? A personal one that I have for myself as well. So the homework is to do some form of self-care every day this week. Every day this week. No days off with self-care. We don't take any days off when it comes to our self-care. I hate apples, but I don't hate apples. That's kind of a strong word. Apples are like one of my least favorite fruit. But I've been eating one every day, not every day, many days this week because my biology teacher in college said that the skin on apples has some really important nutrients for us that we need. So I've been doing that. Whatever your self-care practice is of choice, whether it's one of the fun and lighthearted forms of self-care, or whether you're going to commit to one of the less comfortable, more difficult forms of self-care, up to you. Just practice it every day this week. Make it a habit. The goal is to make it a habit, right? Tiffany is saying, yes, my peace has become so much more important with age. Peace is the North Star. Chris Olive says, no days off. Yes. And then the affirmation is that my present choices are in authentic alignment with my future vision. So that kind of goes to one of the points about self-care I talked about. So I'll say it again. My present choices are in authentic alignment with my future vision. So the way I want to be able to reflect back on my life in the future, I'm putting those bricks in place now so that I have something to look back on that I am proud of. So join me next week. We're going from self-care this week into hair care next week. Not really hair care, but the politics of hair. So I'm really excited about that. And don't forget to check out colorismhealing.com, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And come back and see me next week. I'll be seeing y'all in the social media realms until then. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.